On July 1st, 1944, the doors to the cattle cars were flung open, and my family faced a clump of German SS guards and couples awaiting their arrival. They heard piercing screams and shouts and the snarling of dogs. My father's older brother, Jenner, was the first to step out into the half light. The SS and couples chased everybody out of the boxcars. They faced the selection by Mengele next, and Jenner, who was disabled, and my grandmother Ella were sent to the left to be gassed and burned the same day as they arrived, and my grandfather Moore had been earlier. My mother was selected to go to the right. She lived, but she never saw her in-laws again. As my mother Magda walked with the other young women. They were in rows of five, and she told me how she heard this beautiful music and thought that all the finest musicians in Europe were gathered there to greet them and play for them. In truth, the musicians were forced to play for the new arrivals to end the era of normalcy and to improve their compliance. But then came the dogs and the guards and the whips, breaking their momentary reverie and making them move more quickly. The new prisoners were marched 2 miles from Auschwitz I to Birkenau, where they were stripped, shorn of all their hair, deloused, and then warehoused in stark barracks. After about a week in Auschwitz, my Aunt Kati learned that her older sister, my mother Mogdush, was there. Another prisoner who had been my mother's apprentice spotted Kati at the latrine, and both sisters were told the good news that the other was nearby. Although moving from one barracks to another was strictly forbidden, Kati sneaked into Mogdush's barracks and was stunned to see what bad shape my mother was in. That's when she learned that my mother had just lost her newborn son. Returning to her own barracks, Kati begged her friend to join her in moving with her to join my mother, but Itza didn't want to challenge her fate, and she insisted on staying where she had been assigned. Kati knew that she had to look after my mother, and soon became like a mother herself to her. Kati was able to slip into Mogdush's barracks only because the Germans couldn't possibly keep track of all the individuals, and another woman agreed to swap places with her. This was because the prisoners didn't have names there, and they were dying left and right, so at roll call, the Germans simply counted the numbers of people that were there, and that was good enough. What Kati couldn't have known was by this act of compassion for her sister, she had saved her own life as well. When she returned to check on Itza, she found nothing. Overnight, the barracks had been emptied. 1,000 Hungarian Jewish women had vanished without a trace, presumably up in smoke. And so while Kati's decision saved herself, she inadvertently caused the death of the woman with whom she had changed places, and she forever felt burdened by that and that another woman had died in her place.